Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome back. It's Trucking Lock, and today it is all about the tension. So, you're new to lock sport or picking locks, and you need to figure out tensioning. It's more than just picking up one of these tools, jamming it into the keyway, and putting pressure to it. First you have to know what actually is tensioning. Well, tensioning is providing a rotational force to the core of the lock, trying to rotate it so that way we can accomplish two things. First, it gives us feedback on the pins as we're trying to pick it, and then it lets us know what's going on inside the lock, and then after we have achieved getting those pins to shear line, that rotational force will allow us to open the lock. So how do we tension? Well, how you tension a lock is a little bit of a loaded question, but it's pretty straightforward. There's two main ways that we tension a lock. Is top of the keyway, and that's denoted by the thick part of the core right here. And if you look down the keyway, you can also see the key pins. Then down here is the bottom of the keyway, and that is the section of keyway that sits closest to the body of the lock. They both have pros, they both have cons. I'll go over a couple real quick. Two cons for the top of the keyway tensioners is if you push them in too far, you will bind up that first pin and will either give you false feedback when you're trying to pick it, or if you have a really high cut pin, it can be really hard to reach around it. The pro of a top of the keyway tensioner is it leaves the rest of the keyway open for your pick to travel while you're trying to pick. And again, I'm just talking about beginners right now, not getting into any of the advanced or intermediate tensioning techniques. So, bottom of the keyway. An advantage of bottom of the keyway is that if you have the right size, it actually gives you a little work platform that you can use. I don't have any that fit this description right now, but it actually, you can work off the top of your tension tool and use it kind of like a little platform to pry. Yeah, and with the cons of bottom of the keyway is right here in this gap. If your tension tool is too wide, you can actually spread that gap, and you will spread the core to bind on the sides of the body of the lock, and you won't be able to get a turn. And if it's too small, it can kick and bind up right here on the body. And you can see this lock has some chatter marks on it, like I've done that a time or two. So that's something to pay attention to for both of those techniques. So we've gone over their positioning, if you want to use top of the keyway or bottom of the keyway. Now, what are you actually looking for in a tension wrench? Well, there's two things that we need a tension wrench to do. First, we need to have the ability to turn the core. Well, all of these wrenches have that ability to turn the core. So that answers the first question. The second question is, what are we actually looking for besides it being able to turn the core? What criteria does it have to meet? And my personal belief is you want the tightest possible fit in the keyway. So I would try, if I wanted to use one of these, I would say, okay, you know what, I'm going to pick my smallest one. This is a 30 thousandths. That's pretty loose in there. I mean, I don't have a lot of control over the core. So I'll step up in size and see. Oh, that 40 thousandths fits pretty nice. Yeah, so I would go with the 40 thousandths because it gives me the tightest fit possible, the most control. I also, another important thing to keep in mind is the thicker, more rigid wrenches are going to provide more feedback than the more flexible wrenches. But again, that's personal feel, and if you know what you're feeling for, these wrenches are these are still good wrenches. There's nothing wrong with them. You can still get good feedback from them, but something that is really, really small that you might feel with these, you might not feel with these. So you hear people talk about heavy tension, light tension, medium tension. What does that mean? Well, basically what that means is you take a tension tool that you decide you're going to use, put it in the top of the keyway position, and now if I just put enough force to hold that key there, or that tension wrench there, that is light tension. Now if I really crank on it, and in fact I'll do a little further out so that way you can see it better, you see how much that's bending. That's really heavy tension. And then if you back off somewhere, that, you know, in this range, that's about medium tension. But I take the approach, there's two different ways that you can approach your tension when you're talking about heavy to light. You can go heavy and then let off, or you can go from light and work your way up. Either way works. Either way can be very effective, and neither are wrong, because this lock, you're better off to go from heavy to light, but this lock, you're better off to start light and work your way into the tension. If you try to start off with a medium or heavy tension on this lock, all 4 key pins will be bound up. I don't know why that is. Maybe it's because it has a plastic body for the lock. I don't know. But I found that interesting, and that's why I'm actually making this video, because this got me thinking about how important tension actually is. Either approach that you take, heavy to light or light to heavy, you're going for feedback. Now, when you're going light to heavy, I am not as familiar with this. I have used it. However, I know light to heavy, when you're too light, you'll feel the key pins and they will just be springy. You might not necessarily, you won't feel that in your tension wrench, but you will feel that in your pick. The next thing that you are going to feel is, and you can feel this in your tension wrench, you will feel a little shock, and you might even hear the crack or the snap of a setting pin. Generally, I found if I'm using really light tension, I don't really hear it as much as I can feel just that little tick on my finger. You work your way into even a little heavier tension, and what was an inaudible click that you just felt now becomes an audible click. You can hear it. Then you get a little heavier on the tension, and what happens is you go from you can hear it to it's a loud click. It's almost a snap. And then if you get one thing that you're going to feel, I found, right before you get that snap, you're going to be able to feel the pins dragging. I try to operate right where those pins drag, or just a little less, because I do have a heavy finger. I tend to operate on the heavier side of tension. The last feeling that you're going to get is there's not going to be one. You're going to push up on your pick and there's not going to be anything. But you're going to feel for the click in your tension wrenches. You want to feel that click when that pin sets. When you get into more intermediate and advanced pickings, there is more feedbacks that we have to pay attention to. So the only thing that I can advise new pickers to really do to help better their picking experience is work on your tension control. instead of worrying about going out and getting like a Peterson gem and then a short hook and then a steep hook and like this SS Dev kit and all these different pick profiles, get yourself a great assortment of tension wrenches. That'll make your picking a lot easier. You get the right tension wrenches for the right locks, and it's like having the golden pick. It makes picking so much easier. Paying attention to your tension is definitely a must. One tip that I can offer everybody, I don't know if other people have things that they do like this, but I found as a beginner, I'm going to try to do this. I found as a beginner, you see this more often than not. Let me turn this over so that way it's like I'm actually picking it. You see somebody get the tension tool in, and then they start to pick. They have too much pressure on, and they get on it, and they're pushing and pushing, but that pin is bound. They can't get it, so they're pushing even harder. Well, I found what was happening with me is when the harder I pushed with the pick hand, and I was really trying to gorilla it, the tighter I was gripping this lock, which in turn was also causing me to push down on this finger, binding those pins up even harder. So what I started to do is make my hand be relaxed. Do not let this fingernail, I always put my fingernail on this side of my thumb. If that fingernail is just resting and I can just feel it touching it, that's fine. That means I'm working with all tension of my finger. That means my hand's relaxed. If I feel that start to dig in, then I know that I'm involuntary pushing down too hard, and I know I need to relax. Paying attention to your tension hand goes a long way. And that's hard for a beginner to do. I know when I very first started picking, all my concentration was on my right hand. I hold my pick with my right hand. And it was all concentration on holding the pick and getting those pins set. I wasn't worried about my tension hand. So for beginners, really pay attention to your tension hand. I hope this helps somebody, and I hope you understand tensioning a little bit better. If you have any comments, please drop them below. Again, my email is in my channel description. And until we talk again, happy picking.